now. There we go. I want to welcome everybody to the St. Elizabeth's monthly speaker series. So thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us. And I want to introduce Marianne Tolliver, the Director of Residential Navigation and Senior Supports with St. Louis ARC. She's presenting tonight, Understanding Dementia with Useful and Practical Tips. And the floor is yours, Marianne. Thank you so much for joining.
Right. Well, thank you for um, bringing me in. I am really happy to be here with you all. Dementia is a subject that I have been working with individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities for quite some time. A lot of folks who have Down syndrome and have gone through training with um, the National Task Group on Dementia for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, along with other trainings with Alzheimer's Association and Memory Care Home Solutions. So I guess one thing that I'd like to, I don't know if this is possible, but how many individuals are supporting someone with um, dementia, Alzheimer's of any sort, and are they living in your home and or um, are you supporting someone with an intellectual and developmental disability with dementia?
Jason's going to comment.
Yeah, my mother has, excuse me, my mother has vascular dementia and middle stages of Alzheimer's. So
Okay,
yeah, it's challenging.
it is challenging. My dad also had vascular dementia, and it is challenging. And the one thing that I'll say is that it's always important to keep the humor. Um, I guess I should go ahead and share my screen because that's not even happening yet, is it?
We do have a question from Art and Pat.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I actually was just raising my hand that my husband and I live together and he has vascular dementia.
Well, I am sorry to hear that, but I'm glad that you're here and I hope that I can give you some information that will be helpful. Can you, I can't tell if there it is.
While Marianne's sharing her slides, I just want to say hi. I'm Sharon. I'm in family education at the ARC, and I'm going to monitor the chat. So if any of you have questions for Marianne, I can kind of keep an eye on it.
Thank you, Sharon. So I'm just going to look at a couple of different things. We're going to identify some of the symptoms of dementia, understand what happens in the different stages, understand the person's perspective and that person being the person with dementia, and learn about communication styles and approaches for success, gain some new activities that might be helpful in working with your family member and putting some routines together. So we've talked, a couple of people here were supporting people with dementia. The most common that we often hear about is Alzheimer's. There's vascular dementia, which several of you are supporting a family member with that vascular dementia. There's Lewy body, frontotemporal, and other types of dementia. Dementia is also a group of behavior and symptoms that are caused by different conditions or diseases. So when we say that, there are also other things that can happen that can maybe even the symptoms that your family members are having now, that they could be exacerbated sometime if somebody would have a stroke. Dehydration can also make symptoms come up, as well as UTIs. UTIs, especially with people who are older, is very common to show differences in people's abilities on just you notice that there's something different. It could also be somebody's gait is different. Somebody who has hypothyroidism also mimics the symptoms of dementia. So lots of other different things, including depression and sleep apnea. So the brain is very, what we see has been affected. And with the vascular dementia, it certainly is different than Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's, you're seeing all of the different tangles in the brain. And with vascular dementia, it's the white matter that's in the brain and shrinking it and not allowing it to work as it often did. And some of the differences that you're going to see that the brain cells are affecting are your family members' ability for planning, judgment, that executive functioning of making decisions, controlling. The brain also controls the mood, um, allows people to taste and to be able to process language, whether you're listening to what someone has to say or sometimes finding the words to be able to um, express yourself with what you're trying to say. So there's typical aging, and then there's dementia. So there's those differences. I don't know with some of the other people who are with us tonight, whether they are concerned about dementia or if they're not supporting somebody now, kind of knowing what some of those differences are can be helpful. Typical aging, we are going to sometimes have some memory loss, but we're able to provide examples. We remember that we forgot something, whereas somebody with dementia is going to be unable to recall specific instances, and their memory isn't there, but they don't remember that they didn't remember. Occasional searches for words in typical aging, and as someone with dementia, there's going to be more frequent word finding, searching for those words. Typical aging may have to pause to remember directions to go where you're going, but you're not really lost, but it's like, which way do I go? And someone who has dementia just does not remember. They get lost and they don't know how to get to where they were trying to get to. Remembering recent events is very good within people who are typically aging, and those interpersonal skills stay pretty much at that same level. But somebody with dementia is going to have more of a notable decline in memory for recent events and a loss of interest in social activities. And, I think it's sometimes just not feeling comfortable. They know things aren't the same, and going out and being with other people can be somewhat frightening and overwhelming, I think. So gathering information, always never assume that somebody has dementia. You want to rule out different medical causes that we talked about before that could lead to getting treatment so those symptoms of dementia are not continuing to display themselves. Utilizing a gerontologist or a neurology specialist is helpful, and using an established assessment to see that someone has made some changes. So that assessment is kind of looking from a baseline. There's different assessments that are out there from the St. Louis University is a common place of where they will have one of those, and the name of it right now has escaped me, unfortunately. There are three different stages of Alzheimer's, and I also want to make sure that you all know that those cases and the way that Alzheimer's or dementia is displayed, that no two cases are ever the same, and stages are general guidelines, and those stages may intermingle with each other, and symptoms may occur up to 3 years before diagnosis, and a typical course of dementia could be from 8 to 10 years from that point of diagnosis. Sometimes our folks who have Down syndrome, we don't catch it as quickly as we would within the general population. So early stage of dementia, you're going to see confusion, memory loss, disorientation in space, problems with routine tasks. So seeing that people aren't doing some of those same routines as they used to, and figuring out that routine of the day is sometimes hard. And it changes, and the person sometimes will seem lost. Changes in personality also, you may see some differences where someone may have had a really good sense of humor, and maybe that sense of humor is changing a little bit. And sometimes statements, I remember with my dad, there were statements that came out of nowhere which didn't make sense to me, and they weren't in with his general personality. The middle stage of dementia, you're going to see that people have more difficulty with activities of daily living. So those activities of, getting up in the morning, brushing their teeth, maybe preparing coffee, taking a shower could be more difficult. Knowing when they take their medications can also change, and not remembering when they're supposed to do it or just that they were supposed to take the meds. So cues in those areas are helpful. Anxiety and paranoia and some agitation may display, which is not in line with your family members' personality that they've had. So you're just seeing some differences there. Sometimes people may have some sleep difficulties, and difficulty recognizing familiar people. And one of the things I noticed with my dad is he started calling people, and me specifically, and other people, kiddo. And that was his line that he used. Whether he still knew my name or didn't know my name, I don't know. It didn't matter, but kiddo was a nice term of endearment, and he knew that I was somebody familiar. So that felt really good. Late stage, you're going to see more a loss of speech, a loss of appetite, a loss of bladder and bowel control, loss of mobility, more total dependence. And then a final to that last stage is obviously death. So I want to stop here for just a second. And I just want to get a feel from you all if this information is helpful, or if, I don't know what everybody's knowledge is of the subject of dementia. We're going to get into more things, how to work with the individuals in a couple of different slides. But if it's okay, I'll just go ahead and touch on this a little bit, if that's good for everyone. Okay, thank you for that head nod. I appreciate it, Jason. So the general population, we're going to see more of mild memory loss of recent events, forgetting more recent events, and oftentimes losing items. Can't find their keys, can't find their wallet, the mail, where's my checkbook? And I think at this stage still that people of our older generation of people that you might be supporting probably still use a checkbook, whereas some of the younger folks that may not be in use. Word finding sometimes can be challenging, and mood personality changes, which I've talked about a little bit. Less tolerant, may seem more angry, less energy, and not taking all that same initiative as they used to. They can still care for themselves, but maybe taking longer with chores, handling finances, paying those bills. People with intellectual and developmental disabilities will look at things differently. But I'm not going to go through all of those unless I know that we have someone who is supporting someone with an intellectual disability, but I'm not sure if we do or if we don't.
I put a question out in the chat, Marianne, so if I see that there is, I'll interrupt.
I'm sorry.
I put a question in the chat about whether somebody's supporting somebody. If they
Okay,
are, I'll interrupt you.
thank you. So the second stage is going to be more of a moderate memory loss, more difficulty in expressing thoughts and feelings. They seem more moody, irritable, focused on themselves more so, needing more assistance with daily tasks and with their hygiene, cannot calculate, judge, plan, or make decisions. So that decision making becomes even more difficult, and disoriented to time, place, and date. Um, I guess a couple of things there and examples with my dad. He had um, one time, I don't know how, but he got something out of the garage and it was something he should not have been drinking, which I think he kind of figured out after he started drinking it. But we knew that, oh, there's something here that's not quite right. Um, and making more purchases than what he used to. He was a man who was generally pretty well kept his money and did not buy stuff, but he was buying quite a few items off of the TV. So that was another clue to us that something was just not quite right. And we were trying to figure it out. Also, he would often talk about wanting to go home, even though we were home. And I would try to find out if he meant home where we used to live, in a different town. But I never really got that. But I guess he just wasn't feeling comfortable with where he was. And I was just talking to another friend of mine whose mom was having that same feeling. Late stages where there people have more dependency. There's severe memory loss, appear not to understand their surroundings, can't recognize self or family. Sometimes looking at themselves in the mirror, they may say, who is that guy? Who is that gal? Um, and they don't recognize themselves. They have minimal or no speech, become bedridden, requiring 24-hour support, need help with personal hygiene, and may not even get out of bed towards the end, and may have delusions, a loss of coordination, inability to swallow or walk, incontinence. And I think we saw all those with my dad for sure. The delusions, sometimes one time when I was spending the night, he would say, Marianne, there's going to be this guy that's coming over. So you might have to sleep on the sofa and save the bed for him upstairs. I said, okay. He said, or you can come in and sleep with me and your mother. And I said, Dad, I said, how about we do this? Let's wait and see if he gets here. If he gets here, then we'll make the decision. He can sleep in the bed and then I will sleep on the sofa. So that's one piece of things, is to remember that you have to enter their world because they're not going to be able to step back into yours, because what is happening in their minds is real and you can't move them off of that. So going with it, sometimes apologizing for, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that, but then yet going with the story and then maybe redirecting. For instance, another time, my brother was living at the house, and my dad was saying, that guy that's in the back room, I need to make sure that he knows what he needs to do in the morning. And he wasn't like coming off of that. I said, okay, but he was back sleeping and I wasn't going to go and wake up my brother. So I said, let's just write a note on the piece of paper, letting him know the things that you want him to do, put it up on the mirror. He'll see it, and then you won't have to worry about that. And that kind of settled him, and he was good with that.
Marianne?
Yeah.
There's a question in the chat asking if everybody goes through all three stages, or if it's possible for people to skip a stage and move more quickly into something else.
Yes, that's definitely possible. I think, and like I said before, that they will very much intermingle. Um, and sometimes we don't always see it when it's coming, but yeah, I will say that yes, that can happen. So how do we support someone with dementia? And we're looking at environmental safety. So, ensuring that there are bright lights within the home. So, because the vision may not be as good. So, having those bright lights on at during the day, if it's dark, making sure that you're opening the curtains. Um, and at nighttime, making sure that that light is bright enough as well. Sometimes marking stairs and railings so that they're identified and easily seen by the person. Using bright colors and contrasting colors are really important because sometimes the color of white, people don't see it. So if you have a table, let's say it has, it's a white table or it has a white tablecloth on it, and you have a white plate on it, that they can't always see that the plate's there because it is all blending together. So having a contrasting color of a plate is helpful. The same thing of what is going to be on the plate. If you have mashed potatoes, chicken, and another white type of food, and those are on the plate, they may not even see that they are there. So having an orange plate if you're going to have mashed potatoes and chicken, so that it's more easily seen. Adding graphics to help people identify where their belongings are can be helpful. Being aware of depth perception issues and modifying surfaces with contrasting colors can be helpful. So, for instance, like if the door is the same color as the walls, they may not really notice that there is a door that's there, um, which sometimes can be good in the case if there is a door that goes down to the basement and it's not really helpful for going down there, it's not safe for them. So if the door is the same color, that's going to help them because they may not see it and it's going to help you keep them safe. Um, Also, the color black, I'm just going to skip down here for a minute. The color black is seen as a whole. Um, and we've had some individuals who we've supported who walking on like blacktop surface and getting out of a car can be rather alarming for the person because they can't really see that it's really the ground because it's black. Also, like if you don't want somebody going out a specific door, putting a black rug in front of that door, the person may not step on that rug because it's black and they just don't see that it is ground. So it can be helpful and a hindrance for some of the folks. Um, Assessing safety needs and removing obstacles for safety, especially making sure that that the carpets that if there's rugs, you don't want people tripping on those rugs as they're walking. So if you can remove the rugs, that is helpful. Um, Different objects that could be in the way that they may not see. So making sure that there are clear paths to where people will be walking to. Um, and change in type or the amount of support that someone needs, and keeping just a good feel for that, ensuring that you have the support that you need to support your family member as well, whether that is bringing in someone from a company who can provide that in-home support to your family member, which also kind of gives you a break, is very important. Um, and making sure exercise is also very good for all of us, but also for people who have dementia, because getting out and being active, or even just walking around the house to get themselves moving, is a positive thing, and it also helps people's mental health. Emphasizing and maintaining abilities. So focusing on skills that affect a person's dignity and gives them skills that they are using that gives life purpose. So what I'm thinking are of different things of every day, of whether it's helping out with dinner in whatever fashion that might be. It could be setting a table, it could be washing the vegetables, but using the skills that they have had and to help them continue to use those skills are really important, because it gives them purpose. Folding clothes when they come out of the dryer, or getting them to help with doing the laundry or dusting or whatever those activities that someone generally is engaged in, and that it's their interest. You want to keep them moving and doing those activities for as long as you can, because it helps them, it gives them purpose. And those other pieces of skills affecting dignity, I think of hygiene, brushing their teeth, um, and really, I think giving them that support and those verbal praises of, "Hey, good job, you've got that done. Let's keep moving," um, will help them get. I think just it's having that dignity of still looking nice, feeling good, wearing clothes that that have always made them feel comfortable, and maintaining that pride is important. Communication, using patience and direction, sometimes keeping those that patience and our tone of voice quiet or soft, um, is important, because oftentimes people will, if your voice and your anxiety is going up, the person who you're supporting, their anxiety and or anxiousness will go up with you. They will mimic however you are coming across to them. Keep verbal requests simple, and sometimes an encouragement of, "Hey, let's do this," rather than asking someone if if they were hungry and if they wanted to eat, and that it's probably time for them to eat that, and if they're kind of reluctant to that, and with other activities as well, but um, Dad, it's time to eat. Let's go into the kitchen. We're going to have blah, blah. We're going to have, whatever that might be, a hamburger and French fries or soup or whatever you're having that evening. Keeping the request simple, control the voice volume, uh, also that cadence sometimes, talking slower, but yet not too slow, but kind of going with however they are processing. Uh, Developing communication adaptations to help the person know important information, whether it's the medication that they're taking. That communication could be adapted where there's a list and a time that shows this time, and it is the time that you are going to be taking medication. Because that would be important. Using those visual cues and associations, it's the news, the 5 o'clock news is on, and that you're going to eat at 5:30. When the news is over, we're going to sit down and have dinner. So kind of setting the stage for what is coming next can be helpful for the individual as well. Speaking in statements rather than questions, and asking open-ended questions.
Marianne, there's a comment and a question.
Mhm.
One of the things that I think ties into your last slide, Jason mentioned that they change the activities every half hour at St. Elizabeth's. And I think it's important for people to know that people might not have the endurance to stick with something for a long time. So that's a great example about expecting people to engage for a period of time and then switching it up. So I just wanted to share that with the group. And then Melissa asked, and I think this is a really hard question. So buck up, Marianne. How do we get the person to accept someone to come into their home to help? My mother doesn't want anyone in the house, and my dad doesn't get any breaks.
Yeah, I know that's a hard one. And a friend of mine was just kind of going through that, and as we talked about it, it is so hard. And so your dad does need a break, but having other people come into the house, and maybe it's talking to your mom about your dad and what he needs and not what she needs. It's very difficult. I don't know that I have a great answer for that. Because reasoning sometimes is not easily done. And when someone definitely doesn't want people in the house, it can be hard. Maybe having someone come into the house to visit with your dad, but then and for them to get to know this person would maybe be helpful, so that they're not thinking that it is for them to do something for your mom, but they're to meet with your dad, and maybe starting there in that relationship forming, that maybe that would be helpful for your mom. Is a thought. Um,
I think that's a great answer.
as you were talking, Jason, about the different activities, and changing those because people's endurance is not is what it used to be. Also, like if you're at home and you're going to engage in activity, even at St. Elizabeth's, making sure that whatever activity you're going to do is already set up so that it's there, you're walking in and the person is going right into the activity. They're not waiting. Because sometimes when somebody's waiting, they can lose interest, and also takes that anxiety away from you, as the caregiver. Visual cues, associations are good. Speaking statements, we already talked about that. So not explaining too much, or ask if they want to do something. Here's your medicine. Do you want water or juice? So you're limiting the amount of, or the number of choices that someone has. So it's water or juice that they might be using to take their meds. It's not, do you want to take your medication? Especially if someone who was like resistant to taking their meds, it's just matter of fact. And do you want water or juice? And you can kind of put that into different scenarios. Guide them to the steps that need to take place, because sometimes someone may not remember how to, get dressed. If they put on their socks, helping them with that, and walking through that step by step. The same thing with putting on their pants and on their shirt. And sometimes a visual cue on showing someone how to do it is sometimes needed. The same thing with eating, and taking a bite. And supporting them through that whole process. One-step instructions, being calm, keep things simple, and to keep a smile on your face, which sometimes is hard, but even just a resting face, that's comfortable. It's not helpful to try to convince a person with dementia of reality. Again, we have to enter their world because they cannot come back and come into the world in which we live, because they are someplace else in their brain, and we can't change that. Embracing that therapeutic truth and apologize as we need to.
That makes me think of a friend who her mother has dementia and she's in a facility, and she took her back to her home the other day, and her mom said, this isn't where I live. I want to go back to the other place. And it's so easy to get into an argument and say, Mom, you moved in here. This is where you've been living for the last few months. But my friend did such a great job. She said, oh, okay, Mom. Well, let me go back and we'll go another way. And she went around the block. They drove for about 10 more minutes. She came back to the facility, and her mom was happy because she felt like she'd gotten to where she wanted to go. And the way we remember that is we teach our staff to think about it in terms of improvisational comedy. You want to accept whatever an improv comic gives you and build on it. It's the same way with a person with dementia. You take what they're telling you as what they have to offer, accept it willingly, and then make it work within the scenario that you're going to need to get them to.
That's a really good point, Sharon. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, going with it, keeping the humor, they're just important. Setting up routines and sticking to them, the more steps there is in something, the longer it may take to learn. Uh, Simplify routines the best that you can, and reduce choices so that minimizes their feelings of anxiety, because one or two may be okay, but then you get to three, it can just be overwhelming. And also making sure that you're giving them time to process what you're saying, to not always expect that response is going to be quick in coming back. Do's and don'ts. Exercising, getting that heart going is really good. Scrapbooking and photos are great activities to sit and chat about places someone has been, and talking about the photos that are in that book. And it could be taking memorabilia that they've had in the past and talking about those, and then maybe putting them in a scrapbook if they're not already in the scrapbook. Um, Make sure that, as that people may have new preferences or things that they like to do, that may have changed from what their past was. And somebody in the past may have done a lot of reading, but now reading, it's not good. My mom had a stroke, and she had a time where she just quit reading. And I asked her why. She goes, well, I can't remember what I read yesterday. So I keep going back and just reading that same thing, but she couldn't retain it. So she kind of just quit. She quit reading. So what activities then did she start doing? She did some painting, which became a new preference that she had. So making sure that we look at the things that someone now isn't liking to do and finding out what those new preferences are. Working on word puzzles, arts and crafts, memory boxes, uh, playing music from their generation. Many people who have Alzheimer's and or other types of dementia, music is a miracle at different times. That music and songs that they know sometimes will just wake a person up, and the life comes back into their eyes and they start singing. It can be just really amazing what music does. It seems to be like one of the last things that leaves us. Um, Making a vintage box of items and talking about different pieces, because it can get hard, of finding things to do through the course of a day. Um, we don't want to ignore people. We talk about our staff with that all the time. We don't use baby talk. We don't assume that somebody is confused. Um, their thinking may be different, but sometimes asking questions in a different format can be helpful. Um, quizzing people is never good because it makes them feel bad. Like if you ask, do you remember? Like if I had kept asking my dad, do you remember my name? Um, that could be, just really hard for the person, and they feel really bad when they don't know your name. Um, so sometimes I would go in and say, "Hey, Dad, it's Marianne. I'm so glad to see you." And towards the end, my dad did have to go into memory care. He had left the house at one point early in the morning, and he went out on to the road. They kind of lived out in the country, and he fell, broke a rib, broke a tooth. But we got to the point where we couldn't keep him safe. We did try some alarms within the house so that we knew when he was getting up. So there's different technology out there that can help. Um, but towards the end, that was the best thing that we could do to keep him safe. It's one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, but um, it was good. It was the best thing for him. We don't want people to have long-term consequences. Don't need to attempt to reorientate someone. And just sitting and doing nothing can be very detrimental for the person, and hard. So finding those different things to do that we talked about. So here is an activity toolkit that I have gotten from Memory Care Home Solutions. And there are instructions and guidelines in here on how to do different things that would be helpful in working with your family member, which I could go ahead and send this to you, Jason, if you'd like. And then you can share that with people who would like to get it.
That would be wonderful. Thank you, Marianne.
So I won't kind of go all the way through this. Um, the other thing that I haven't mentioned yet is some of those routines and some of the hygiene routines. Um, I don't know what happened to my website. We want to, I'm going to stop the share for just a second so that you're not looking at a white screen. Is like, for instance, when it's like shower time, it became difficult with a lot of the people that we support, that taking a shower was not something that they wanted to do anymore and became uncomfortable. But yet, after, if someone especially has had some issues with incontinence, having that shower or bath can be really important. So the one thing that we really kind of work with folks on, and this is the same thing with maybe bedtime and trying to get to sleep, is for the bathroom to make sure that the bathroom is warm, that it's inviting. If soft music is helpful for the individual, um, or that shower time, go ahead and do that. Make sure that everything is set up in the shower before you're getting in, or before your family member would get in that shower, so that the soap is there, the shampoo's there, the towel is right there, and the bathroom, shut that door ahead of time, get that warm water going, and get the bathroom warm, because that can be helpful. The same thing of setting up routines at nighttime. Maybe having a small cup of hot tea with some music that is soothing can be helpful, because then the individual knows that they are kind of getting to that point of um, what's happening, which is it's time to go to sleep and we're relaxing before that. Also, if you have seen different times of maybe some sundowning. Sundowning is like at the time of day where dusk is happening. So the light is starting to get low. You want to make sure then you're shutting curtains, that you're turning the lights up, because that helps the individual not go too much into the dark, but it brings them the light, um, one thing that was explained to me was that sometimes there are shadows out there, and those shadows can look like different things and can be scary to people because they can't really differentiate what that is. Um, so those are a couple of things to do. We talked about having brighter lights, and then at dusk time, it's important. And then when it's getting closer for time to go to bed, starting to dim the lights a little more just kind of sets up that whole environment. I am going to see if I can get this to work again. I don't know what happened to it. And this here. It's the other thing that that my slide would take us to is making sure that you are doing things to take care of yourself. So setting up a time of respite for you at home so that you have a place to go into and do things, whether it's listening to music, doing some meditation, breathing, um, and oh, Sharon, did you bring that up? So, just cultivating that peaceful, easy feeling and positive energy for yourself. Identify what brings you pleasure. Um, People in your life who are important to you, who are good support. You want to bring them into your circle and let them support you. Places that you can go that bring you peace and make you feel good. Um, and sometimes just that little piece of meditation. I go to this place that's in Colorado, that's on top of a mountain, and all there is sky. There's nothing else. And that often helps me to visualize that and can bring me back to my peaceful place. Engaging in activities, whether it's listening to records or listening to music, doing some crafts, something that makes that revitalizes yourself because you have to take care of yourself too, because if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of your family member. And the same thing for staff who might be coming and staff at St. Elizabeth, of making sure that they have those things in place, that they can take that breath when they need to.
Can I interrupt, Marianne?
Yes, you can.
I just want to say, I think sometimes people really have a knee-jerk reaction when they think about self-care because clearly it's a very challenging thing. You're in the middle of trying to take care of someone else. Usually there's other things happening in your life, whether it's work or children that you're caring for or other kinds of situations. And I think it's important to realize that this is really in a resilience kind of a situation where you've got to put the oxygen mask on yourself in order to make it through and be able to support your family member with disability or with dementia. So it's not selfish for you to do that, and it's not impossible for you to do that either. What you've got to do is break it into the very smallest steps. I have a little clock I keep on my desk, and I've filled it out for when I have 2 minutes, I can do this. When I have 5 minutes, I can do this. And I fill it up with things like standing and looking at the bird feeder outside my window for a minute. It doesn't take that long to do that, but it gives me that sense of calm that Marianne's talking about. Spending 2 minutes to brew a cup of tea and really don't do anything but boil the water and get out your tea bag and give yourself that space to do that. That can give you the resilience you need to get through the day. So I just encourage you not to take that away from yourselves. Make that a priority.
Absolutely. And remember to breathe. That's what I always tell everybody. Remember to breathe. Just stop and breathe, especially when you are starting to get really frustrated. Stop and breathe. Um, for times when our um, when you are feeling like can focus your attention on aspects of caregiving that's within your control is important. And in the situations that you feel like you're out of control, breaking it down into the smallest steps possible. What is a tiny step that you can take towards the goal that you're trying to get to? Use trial and error. Sometimes what works one day will not work the next day, and what didn't work today might work tomorrow. So continuing to find those things that you can do that's going to get you towards the goal of supporting your family member. Managing expectations and redefining success. Success can be just, getting dressed, getting your family member dressed that day, or going for a walk and coming back, that hey, we got there and we did it, and this is a great thing for us to celebrate. And finding those little things in a day that are meaningful, and they can be so small, but to celebrate each and every one of those. Are there just remember that you know your family member better than anybody else. Using trial and error, being creative, see what works for you and for your family member in their living place. So, and wherever that place is in their mind. Go past that, Sharon. So a lot of the resources that we use today are on this sheet. But any other questions that you all have? I can't hear you.
I'm sorry, I was muted. There's a question in
Okay.
the chat. What can you do if they refuse to do anything but sit in front of the TV and show no interest in anything else you suggest?
Is there I guess when it all comes down to it, are they hurting anybody by sitting watching TV? Sometimes I think it's hard because we want people to be more interactive, and we want them to get out of a rut. But you can't beat your head up against a wall. You might find something that they're interested in, even if it's just turning off the TV and engage in conversation. I think that is difficult, but sometimes you have to go with the person with where they're at and engaging them.
I will say that from a educational perspective, if somebody's interested in the TV, you know that they have an interest in something visual. So you might lean into other kinds of visual experiences with them, maybe going for a ride and having them spot certain things in Lone Elk Park, or go look at the holiday lights. Those might be things that would be equally interesting. Maybe an iPad would have a game that would draw your visual. Okay, Jason's going to talk now.
No, you're exactly right. We did that tonight with our participants at St. Elizabeth. Everybody got on a bus and went to Tillis Park to look at the lights. They loved it.
Yeah, I think the five senses come into play for all of us, and when you've lost some of your brain capacity, leaning into that sensory experience. Maybe people are really interested in music, and that's an audio thing, so that might be how you engage them in the kitchen. Maybe they want to hear the blender whirring, or they'll listen for the microwave dinging. But you can use that as one of your creative tools to try and get people to connect.
Right.
Well, I give all of you guys a big gold star for coming the week before the big holiday season. And Melissa says, how can we get the person to settle down? Can you tell me what that means? Are they agitated?
Yeah, she's not so much agitated as she is just like wanders around the house and just won't settle down. Like my nephew was there and he wanted to do a puzzle with her, and she just like would sit there for like a minute and then get right back up.
Lack of ability to focus. Maybe, um, maybe she's needing some of that exercise of walking, and maybe, going for a walk, even if it's a small walk outside to the mailbox, and back, just to kind of get some of that fresh air in. But doing something that maybe is a little more active at the time, and or is she able to like say, what she's kind of interested in, or is she just up and going and doesn't want to be there?
She is more just, I call her antsy and feisty. It's like if we're all there, she's got to be putting the dishes away. She's got to be doing all the things. And then, if I'm not there, dad's like, your mom's making me crazy today. And I'm like, deep breath, dad, and it's just, I feel for him because he doesn't know how to get her just to sit down and relax. It's not really that she's upset or anxious. She's just got to constantly be moving. I feel like.
Was that
Was
her
she very busy as a homemaker?
She was, and then she also worked for 30 plus years outside of the home, and was always very active. She worked in banking, and she loved to go for walks, but now she doesn't really want to do that. She doesn't want to go travel like she always enjoyed, so it's been a struggle in that aspect.
Yeah. I think just a variety of different things. And maybe she needs a routine of different activities that were meaningful to her in the past. Is she still good with like some of those financial pieces, even if it's, doing something with the balance of a checkbook, or what other activities kind of was she engaged in?
Well, cooking, which apparently dad's not letting her do too much of that because she keeps setting off the smoke alarms. I said, well, you have to kind of monitor her. And as far as the checking and balancing the books and stuff, I think he's taken all that over. I guess it just got too stressful for her. And then, like, if he's doing it, she's like, what are you doing? What are you doing with my money? So the paranoia is getting to be even worse than it was before.
Yeah, and I think just talking about, sharing with her what is happening. Those pieces that are understandable to her. There's so much money coming in. We're paying the bills for this, this, and this. So walking and talking through it, even though she's not actually doing the activities, but walking through and understanding what is happening, is important to her. With cooking, taking it from that perspective of oh, what do you call it? Um, I lost my train of thought.
I think you
Yep.
can share activities, if your dad's gonna have to cook anyway, maybe she can be in the kitchen and do, washing the vegetables or getting out the plates and stuff that you're gonna need, or some aspect of it, so that she does feel like she's contributing, but maybe not using the stove if that's the part that's challenging. Tiara's
Okay.
asking about aggression, Marianne, when you're in a stage where you're getting to the agitation leading to aggression.
Um, that is, I think, one, finding out to discover where's that aggression coming from. I think also, finding that activity, and that's the times that I'm thinking that aerobic activity of movement can be helpful, that maybe getting out some of that anxiety. And maybe that is where that anger could be coming from, is because they don't understand what's happening and they are confused. Um, and so I think those are pieces of um, getting also some outside help, I think of Memory Care Home Solutions, who I spoke of earlier. Memory Care Home Solutions is in the city, and they provide services to people in Missouri and in Illinois. And they bring people into the home and help them with some of the struggles that you might be having, and come and bring some solutions and things to you to help with the situation that you're encountering.
The other thing I would say, Tiara, and it's different for every person, but if you all can kind of figure out when the behavior is starting to get agitated as opposed to when it's full out aggression, if you can get to it before it gets aggressive and pivot, either console them if they're agitated about something, or pivot to a preferred activity or something that's going to be motivating, then that might help move you away from it moving forward. Once somebody is actively aggressive, there's no negotiating at that point. It's about keeping yourself safe, keeping them safe, and kind of getting through to the other side of it.
I'm going to put also in the chat the website for Memory Care Home Solutions.
Yeah, some of the things that you guys are talking about, it would be really nice to have somebody in the home that could assess the actual situation that's occurring. So
So I have put their
memorycarehs.org.
and I will also put in their phone number. 314-645-6247. You're welcome. Any other questions? Well, I hope that I've brought some pieces to you that will be helpful in your journey in supporting your family members. And I encourage you to, again, take care of yourselves, take care of your family members, all of you, get your support behind you, and be resilient and find ways to keep yourself going.
Thank you so much, Marianne, for taking the time going through this with us tonight. Sharon, thank you for helping out as well tonight. On behalf of the St. Elizabeth's Adult Daycare Centers, we wish everybody a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. And we're here for you guys. If anybody needs anything, just let us know. Our website is seadcc.org. And we'll put this in our blog section on our website within the next couple of days. So you can have access to this for the future. So thank you all for joining, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Thanks for
Thank
the
you.
invite. Happy
Bye-bye.
holidays.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.